15 of the company's top engineers sat in silence, frustration clouding their expressions as they stared at the massive digital board in front of them. The countdown timer had stopped at 0-100, the code failed to run, and the prototype, one that had taken months to develop, was still refusing to respond. For weeks, this problem had baffled the brightest minds in the company. The CEO, a brilliant but tired single father named Daniel, had poured everything into this one project. The solution was critical for a government contract that could change the future of his tech firm, and his life. Daniel paced around the room, rubbing his temples. Sleep had become a rare luxury for him. Balancing the pressure of the collapsing deadline and caring for his 5-year-old daughter, Emma, was stretching him beyond his limits. Ever since his wife had passed away 3 years ago, Daniel had done everything possible to raise Emma with love and care. When he hired Lily, a quiet, kind-hearted 22-year-old nanny with a degree in early education, it was supposed to be temporary. He never imagined how much she'd eventually mean to both of them. That morning, Lily arrived at the office to drop off Emma after her morning preschool class. As she stepped into the meeting room with Emma holding her hand, she noticed the grim faces and the tension in the air. Everyone was so absorbed in their panic that no one noticed her standing near the whiteboard. No one except Daniel, who gave her a tired but appreciative glance. "Hey, you two," he said gently. "Give me a few more minutes and we'll grab lunch." Lily nodded, sitting Emma down in the corner with her coloring book. But her eyes kept scanning the screen. The mess of code, the diagrams on the whiteboard, and the device prototype on the table. She wasn't a software engineer, but she had spent years tinkering with logic puzzles and problem-solving games in her spare time. It was one of the ways she managed her anxiety and kept her mind sharp. Quietly, almost instinctively, she walked closer to the board, tilting her head at the lines of tangled code. "May I?" she asked softly, almost embarrassed. One of the engineers let out a short laugh, not out of rudeness but disbelief. Daniel raised a brow but motioned for her to go ahead. She stepped forward and looked closely at the logic diagram and a piece of script written in Python. "It's not the hardware," she said, more to herself than anyone else. "It's looping here, look." She pointed to a simple but critical error, something so fundamental that the engineers had completely overlooked it. The code wasn't broken, it was just being told to repeat a failed condition because of a misused logical operator. Within seconds, she adjusted it, rewrote the loop, and hit run. The prototype blinked once, then again. A soft chime filled the room as the interface came alive. On the screen, "System active. Ready for deployment." The room went silent, then erupted. One engineer stood up in disbelief, others clapped, a few simply stared at Lily like she had descended from the heavens. Daniel's eyes widened with awe as he turned to her. "How did you?" he began, stunned. She smiled nervously. "I just saw the pattern. It looked like a logic game I used to solve in college." Daniel stepped forward and pulled her into a spontaneous hug. Emma clapped with joy from her corner. For the first time in weeks, Daniel felt like he could breathe. What happened next would change all of their lives. Daniel called off the rest of the meeting and invited Lily and Emma to lunch in his office. Over sandwiches and juice boxes, they laughed and talked, not as employer and employee, but as something closer, more meaningful. Daniel had always admired Lily's calm energy, her kindness, and how she treated Emma like her own family. But now, he saw something even deeper, a rare intelligence, a hidden confidence, a mind that shone brighter than most. That evening, as the sun began to set and Lily packed Emma's school bag, Daniel stopped her at the door. "I owe you more than I can say," he said. "That fix today didn't just save the project. It saved the company." Lily blushed. "I'm just glad I could help." "You're more than a nanny, Lily," he added. "I think you've always been more than that. I just never really saw it until now." Weeks passed. Lily was offered a full-time position, not as a nanny, but as a problem-solving consultant. Daniel enrolled her in an accelerated tech mentorship program, fully paid. She flourished. Her instincts, empathy, and out-of-the-box thinking brought fresh perspective to every team she joined. And Emma, who adored her even more now, continued to grow in a home filled with warmth, curiosity, and laughter. But something else blossomed, too. Between early morning coffee chats, late-night problem-solving marathons, and family movie nights, a bond was forming between Daniel and Lily. It was quiet and respectful, born not out of convenience but genuine admiration. They were two people carrying their own burdens, finding in each other not just relief, but purpose. On the day the government contract was signed and the firm received its largest funding round ever, Daniel stood in front of his team to give a speech. He thanked every engineer, every late-night coder, and then, he paused. "But there's someone here who didn't have an engineering degree," he said. "Someone who stepped into a room full of frustrated geniuses and solved what 15 of us couldn't. Her name is Lily, and she's taught us all that intelligence comes in many forms. She saved us, and well, I think she saved me too." The room applauded, not out of formality, but out of genuine respect. Later that evening, as they celebrated at the company's rooftop, Daniel stood beside Lily, watching Emma chase bubbles across the sky. "You changed everything," he said quietly. "I just wanted to help," she replied. He looked at her, his voice soft. "And you did, more than you'll ever know." Months later, the company grew. Lily led a new innovation unit focused on user-first tech. Daniel became not just the CEO of a successful startup, but a happier, more fulfilled father. And somewhere in between school runs, board meetings, and weekend hikes, he fell in love with the woman who started out as the nanny, but turned out to be so much more. This story isn't about code, or tech, or engineering. It's about how brilliance can come from unexpected places. How a young woman with a quiet spirit and a sharp mind reminded a room full of experts that sometimes, the simplest solution lies just beyond ego. And how love, unexpected, unplanned, and undeniable, can find its way through the chaos of life and leave behind a story worth telling. Not all heroes wear lab coats or business suits. Some wear sneakers, carry juice boxes, and solve the unsolvable with nothing but clarity and heart.